we go. Hey everyone, my name is Kathy Markov and I am so happy to be here today. I am a trainer, a workshop facilitator for the Santa Barbara County America's Job Center of California. And I'm so happy to be here. I'm going to share my screen with you so we can get started on, actually, this is a topic I've been talking about for years. And the topic is about attitude. So today we are looking at attitude being really everything. So the goal is that we can learn to manage ourselves. And we can learn to assume and maintain a positive attitude, both at work and at life. And there are a lot of really, really good benefits for this, besides the fact that you find yourself happy and, well, we'll find even healthier if you work at developing a good attitude. Now, you know, attitude is situational sometimes, but I always talk about a set point. And I'll tell you that my set point tends to be pretty high. I tend to be quite a positive person, but that doesn't mean that different situations or different things, or maybe how I'm feeling, doesn't make me have a bad attitude. But I always remember, you know, my set point is happy and positive. And so this is what we want to kind of look at. On all of my classes, I'm really trying to get people to begin to do some self-reflection. And so throughout this class, I'm going to ask you kind of, where's your set point? You might have come in here and been excited. You might have come and needed a pep talk. And I hope that that is something that happens during this workshop, but it's also important to start to think about, you know, what is your set point? And it can serve as something to work on and try to adopt a more positive attitude, but it's also something to remember in those down times. You know, they say the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. And sometimes it's those shadows that make us realize the positiveness and the light when we emerge from them. But I want to tell you, to begin this class, I want to tell a story. And I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And after I came back, I began to work for the agency as a trainer. And I had this wonderful opportunity. I was sent to the Slovak Republic. And this is a picture of Bratislava, the capital city of Slovakia. It's only about an hour and a half from Vienna. I mean, we're right in the heart of Central Europe. It was absolutely stunning. This was in the 90s. And we had a program there, quite a large program. This was in 97. And the Slovak Republic had been an independent country that had separated from the Czech Republic only about 4 years before. And of course, they had gone through the Velvet Revolution, where they really freed themselves from Soviet overlording. They were not, you know, part of the Soviet Union, but they were certainly under the Soviet Union control. So it's a very exciting time to be in that part of the world. They talked about a renaissance in music and art and culture. And you see this picture, it was absolutely stunningly beautiful. And what were we doing there, right? Because we're in the heart of Europe. You could get on a train and be in Paris in a day, or to anywhere in Europe. We could be in Venice in a few hours. Really remarkable place to serve. And most of the programs were in English as a second language. So prior to the Velvet Revolution, they taught Czech and Slovak, they taught German, probably Hungarian and Poland, a lot of Slavic languages, but the primary second language that people would learn was Russian. And I was sent there to manage a training program that by and large was to train Slovakian people English at the high school level and also to conduct business. So it was a very interesting, exciting program. I mean, we knew we wouldn't be there long, but there certainly was a need at this point. So they talked about, before the Velvet Revolution, you know, most of the second language teachers were teaching Russian. And at the moment that that ended, all of those teachers were funneled into training to learn how to teach English. So it was very interesting. I had a group of very, very highly skilled English as a second language teachers there. And so this is what they were doing. We were bringing in Americans who were native speakers, and we had a 4-month training program to teach them what they needed to do to be English teachers in the Slovak Republic. So these Peace Corps volunteers would arrive and everybody was so excited, and the Peace Corps volunteers just were thrilled. And they were being prepared by me and my staff, but we were only seasonal staff. There were other staff that were there on an ongoing basis to manage them and to help place them in the schools that they were working in, to help them and assist them and help the communities with this great opportunity for everybody. So there was this one woman, and her name was Maya. And I show you this picture because in my mind's eye, this is what Maya, the program manager, looked like. This is Edna E. Mode from The Incredibles. And when I saw this show, it just cracked me up because in fact, this is kind of what Maya looked like. She had this kind of blunt haircut and she wore these big glasses and she spoke with a very thick Slavic accent. Of course, it was a Slovak accent, but it sounded kind of Russian, and she looked kind of like a little Russian spy. I loved her. She was super funny, very supportive of me. We really enjoyed one another, but you can just kind of imagine that this was sort of her character. So she wasn't interacting on a daily basis with the volunteers. It was me and my staff, but Maya would come and visit, and she would interview the volunteers to try to place them in one of the schools around the country. And she had worked very hard with the principals of the school to try and get all of the volunteers a good place to live, a safe place to live, to be in communities that were really excited for them to come. You see, Peace Corps does not force volunteers on anybody, but they are willing to serve in communities and countries that ask for the certain types of skilled volunteers. And so, of course, these communities, mostly high schools and colleges, had asked for native speakers. I mean, it was a plum job. These volunteers were usually teaching conversation classes. So they would read books and talk about it. They would have songs, they'd watch movies. Some of the schools even took the students with their teachers on trips to England, things like that. I mean, it was a really, really remarkable and special program. So after the volunteers had been there, I don't know, about a month or so, Maya came to me. And so funny, because in my imagination and memory of this, I don't know if you know what this is, but this is a scene from The Americans. It is a TV show about, seems like a very, mainstream suburban American family, but in fact, the husband and wife are Russian spies. And of course, that's Carrie Russell and Matthew Rise, and they're just amazing. I love the show. But this scene where Elizabeth, who is Carrie Russell, is meeting with her, the caretaker named Claudia, and they would sort of meet clandestinely in these parks, and they would walk along kind of without looking at each other as if they didn't know each other. Well, that was kind of how Maya approached me. It was so funny because she said, "Oh, Kathy, I need to talk to you. I need you to meet me in the park at 3 o'clock. I'll be on one side of the park. You be on the other side of the park. We'll walk towards each other, and then we'll just start walking together down the park, but don't look at me." And I thought this was the funniest thing I ever heard. Like, why would she want to do that? I really thought she was like maybe underground KGB and going to ask me to join and whatever. But anyway, I met her at the park, and I thought the whole thing was quite humorous. And there she was with her haircut and her glasses, and she was a little wiry thing. She didn't look like Claudia, but she was cracking me up. So I did. I came in on one side of the park. She came in on the other side of the park, and we walked towards each other without looking at each other. And then we walked down the middle of the park, and she said, Kathy, I want to talk to you about something. I said, oh, I know that, Maya. What do you want to talk to me about? She said, well, it is about Elizabeth. Now, I know I talked about Elizabeth, the American, so it's not what I'm talking about. She said, the volunteer Elizabeth. I said, oh, Elizabeth, yeah, what about her? She said, well, I was so excited to meet Elizabeth. She has a master's degree in teaching English as a second language. She has 20 years experience teaching people in the United States who are refugees. So on paper, I never saw a volunteer who had better qualifications than Elizabeth. She has the knowledge. She has the skills. I said, yeah, isn't that great? She said, no, it's not great. Where do they get these people? Did anyone ever meet her? And I said, well, I'm not part of the recruiting part, so I can't answer that question. So he said, well, this is the problem. On paper, she looks wonderful. Everybody is really excited. But have you seen her? I said, yes, yeah, Maya, I have. And I kind of know what you're talking about. Now, this is not a real picture of Elizabeth, but this is kind of how she got off the plane. So Elizabeth had the knowledge and the skills to outshine anybody, but Elizabeth came off the plane like this. She had a nasty attitude. So Maya went on to tell me, Kathy, I don't want to place her anywhere. We sent her to the village to meet her potential principal of her school. And when she came back, she was so mad. She said, why is it that I have this house with a TV that has all these channels? I'm a Peace Corps volunteer. I need not to have these things. And why is it that the school is sending me to England? I've been to England. I want to really be where people need help. And she said that Elizabeth had told that to her future community. And frankly, they were quite insulted. I mean, I went and talked with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was mad. She said, I don't know why they sent me here. They should be sending me to the middle of Africa. I have all these skills. I need to be where people need me, not here in the middle of Europe. See, what she didn't really understand was that the skills that she had were needed there in Central Europe. And if anyone knows the history of the Slovak Republic, yeah, they did need English skills because they were right in the middle of Europe. And in order for them to really survive on their own, they needed to build their economy. And it wasn't happening with people speaking Russian or Slovak or Hungarian or Czech. If you know anything about those languages, they're beautiful. It's a beautiful part of the world. But this is not how to engage in a global economy, particularly when they wanted to become part of the European Union. They needed to be speaking languages that plural, and everybody spoke multiple languages. This is very different than here, but everyone needed to be able to speak languages that would be able to take them wherever they want to go. So this attitude of Elizabeth's was pervasive, and it was very unfortunate. So Elizabeth was placed in a site, but I'll tell you what, it didn't last that long, because I'll tell you, Elizabeth had knowledge, Elizabeth had skills, and Elizabeth had an attitude. Well, we all have an attitude, right? But her attitude was negative. And knowledge, skills are great, but when you couple it with a bad attitude, well, it can be very disastrous, because how our knowledge and skills and our attitude come together is our behavior. Our behavior is dictated by how these three things come together. Well, the interesting thing about attitude, we often think it's like an iceberg. So this slide demonstrates something that I think is important, because this is what Maya said. On the surface, it was about her knowledge and skills, right? But her attitude kept them from applying them in a positive way. So on the surface, our attitude and skills are probably known to people. We think that our attitude is unknown to people, but that is not true. right? Our attitude is not really unknown. It didn't take long for all of us to realize that, yeah, on paper, Elizabeth had the skills, but she had the worst attitude. And so this is important for all of us to think about. I mean, think about times when your attitude has not been good for whatever reason, right? How has that impacted your performance? How has that impacted how people interact with you? I always challenge students when I'm talking about this topic. Go to the grocery store and go to the grocery store tonight. Walk in there in a bad attitude. I mean, just kind of be grumpy. Have that grumpy kind of look on your face like Elizabeth, kind of walk around, stomp around, kind of, move around people, or don't get close to people, or just act in a bad attitude and see how people treat you. My experience is that they're not going to treat you very well. Then go out and then come back either on another day or go to a different grocery store and put on a big smile. And, you can act. So act really happy, like you have a great attitude. Say hi to people, smile at everybody, and see how willing people are to help you, to look back at you, to be nice to you. Our attitude is not under the surface. Right? We wear our attitude all the time. And our attitude is like a price tag. It shows how valuable we are. And in the case of Elizabeth, well, she didn't last very long. And very soon we ended up putting her right back on that plane headed home. I don't even think she lasted in the country 6 months. And it wasn't her knowledge or skills. It was just she had a lousy attitude. And she didn't like anybody and nobody liked her. So that was the end of her Peace Corps adventure in the Slovak Republic. Because this is something I talk a lot about. People will eventually forget what you did. They will often forget what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Right? And this comes from our attitude. So I want to tell you that this is not some kind of, oh, let's just be happy and don't worry, be happy, put a smile on your face. I'm going to tell you another story, and this is a true story. This is many years ago. You can look this up on the internet. This is a business case. So this woman is a flight attendant for Cathay Pacific. Cathay Pacific is one of the premier airlines. I think it's out of Hong Kong or Singapore, but it is one of the premier airlines in Asia. Very famous. We don't see it so much around here, certainly not domestically, but definitely in Asia, it's a major player. Anyway, thousands and thousands of employees. And there was a negotiation between the union of the flight attendants and the baggage people, anybody who did maintenance, that kind of class of employee, not the executives, but of the frontline workers. And they were negotiating for better salary, better benefits, that kind of thing. And they weren't getting anywhere. And so the union owner, the union president or leader, started a campaign where, actually, to be honest, I think it is Singapore, and I think it's illegal for the people who are in major transportation like airline to quit. And so the leader of the union said, well, okay, it's illegal for us to, or walk off, to strike. That's what I'm looking for. It's illegal for us to strike. So that's okay. We will show up to work every day. You will be on time. You will do your job. You will actually do your job very well. But the one thing you will not do is you will not smile. You will not smile at all. You will not smile at the customers. You will not smile at each other. You will not smile at your boss. You will not smile, period. You will walk through the airport, walk through your workplace, go to lunch, come back from lunch, and you will not have a smile ever. But you will do your job. You will do your job well, to the best of your abilities, but a smile will not pass your lips when you are at work. Do you know how long that smile strike lasted? I think it didn't last more than 24 hours. Immediately, the company gave in to the demands, because the impact of that on customer service, on the whole feeling of the workplace, on everything was dramatic. This is a true story. And I think that this reflects a bit about attitude. This is really important. A bad attitude is like a flat tire. If you don't change it, you're not going to get anywhere. Right? Sometimes people wonder, what's wrong? I see in HR, I see this a lot. They're people, they're ambitious, they want to go places, but there's something about them, an attitude issue, that just, they're not seen as someone who's going to take off, right, in the company. So it's kind of funny, because attitude in our culture kind of takes something on. I don't know, this picture here reminds me kind of like of the 80s, Michael Jackson or whatever, a bad attitude, like, oh. I once taught a class and there was a student and he said, it's just my personality to have a bad attitude. I was like, no, there is a difference between attitude and personality, right? And all personality types can have a good attitude or a bad attitude. That's your choice, right? Attitude is something actually that we can change, and we can change it really quick. Imagine we're sitting here and, we're in California. I hate to even say it, but the big one comes, the big earthquake. So we're sitting here, we're talking about attitude, everything's good. Oh, you guys, it's so great to have you. The big earthquake comes. Then what happens? How quickly do you think our attitudes would change? Like a heartbeat. Your attitude can change in a heartbeat. You just need to be conscious of it. You need to work at it. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. It is not easy. But it is something that we need to be aware of. And in all my classes, I teach about self-awareness. Hey, I can have a bad attitude. Absolutely. I've been in situations that are hard. Sometimes I think we get these hard situations as sort of tests, right? Of how can we rise above it? It's not easy. And I know I've had my times of not rising above it, but it's an awareness and it's something I work on. So let's really look at what is attitude. Here's a definition. Attitude is the way you mentally look at the world, the whole world around you. It is how you view your environment and your future. So it's about what's happening now, but the way you think about the future. It ends up being the focus that we develop on a daily basis, but in general towards life. I mean, this is when I'm talking about that set point. I'm fortunate. I think my set point is happy. Not everybody is like that, but I can imagine that if I had, a string of unfortunate events, it might change. Likewise, if I can create opportunities that I can feel excited and happy about, my attitude set point can go up. So this is really important. Yes, it's important for your personal life, but it has a big impact on our work life. And because this is by the Santa Barbara Workforce Development Board and the America's Job Center of California, let's look a little bit about the impact of attitude on the workplace. So here, let's look at negative attitude, a lackluster performance, unwillingness to collaborate, a dismal outlook. Things are all bad, unwillingness to try new things. Hey, this doesn't work right now in the workplace. Right? Things are changing all the time. The one thing constant is that there's change. You get a computer, you just start to get used to it. And then they come and say, hey, we're going to upgrade your computer. And you're glad for the upgrade, but then you get really bummed out because it doesn't work the same as the old one. And you have to learn new things, right? We have to be willing to try new things and know that they're coming. Reduce energy levels, depressed feelings, reduced quality of work product. It's been proven that people with poor attitudes have poor quality work. So this is important. Poor customer engagement. I see it kind of like a cycle. An employee has a bad attitude. They show that to the customer, even in subtle ways. Then the customer isn't happy and is negative back towards the employee. Then it reinforces. The the negative feelings and attitude that that employee had, and it just gets worse. This is why I say, do that challenge. Go to the grocery store in a bad mood and see what happens. Go to the grocery store in a good mood and see what happens. You're going to see a huge difference. Difficulty overcoming obstacles. Right? Something gets in their way. What happens? You get mad. So, this is Debbie Downer. Right? Who wants to be around a Debbie Downer? Do you want to work with a Debbie Downer? Do you want to be a Debbie Downer? I love that character. It's really funny. We think it's funny because we see this kind of thing around us and we know how miserable it is. A positive attitude, well, it increases productivity. There's greater probability that people are going to want to work with you as part of a team, that you have better collaboration. It's really interesting. I had this experience a couple of weeks ago. I do these week-long training programs for a government agency. It's funny, it's international. It happens at all times of the night, depending on what time frame we're on. But I did 2 kind of back to back. The first one, I work with this woman who had a really negative attitude, and there are 3 of us on the team. The other woman that I work with had a really positive attitude. Well, what do you think happened? This negative attitude woman kind of attacked both me and the other woman. And neither of us want to work with her again. Neither of us wanted to be cooperative, help her complete her report, all the things that we usually do. Why would I, go out of my way to want to collaborate? And I mean, yeah, it's one of my values, but if she was so negative and so made my life so difficult during this 1 week of work that we were all getting paid quite well to do, what would be my incentive to want to collaborate or work with her again? So, I'm lucky. I do project work. I actually never have to see her again, never have to work with her again. I'm lucky because I don't have to say yes to the things that she works on. But most of us aren't in that position, right? So if you're finding that people are not collaborating with you, maybe they're not acting like a team or that kind of thing, it's time to check your attitude. Having a positive attitude, it improves morale. You face challenges and adversity in a much better way to overcome them. It actually opens up your creativity and it helps you to be open to trying new things. Now, it's not like, we're always so enthusiastic. I have to get a new phone. It doesn't ring anymore. That's a problem, but I dread it because, oh no, I got to get a new phone and I got to learn it. But, also I'm willing to try it because it's going to be great. But this is the positive attitude helps to anticipate, not that it'll be easy, but it opens you up to the creativity and trying new things. When we have a positive attitude, we're more willing to share. And then there's lower turnover among employees that have better attitudes, increased sense of camaraderie. We kind of talked about that, improved customer service. So, this is sort of like the opposite. This is Elle Wood from Legally Blonde. Right? She was the ultimate positive person. You know who I could have put there too? Ted Lasso. If you guys are watching that show, Ted Lasso, super positive. It's not like he doesn't have problems in his life, but his set point is quite high and he works at developing his attitude. So, these are just sort of some examples here, but your attitude really determines your altitude, particularly at work. And I've coached a lot of people. There was this one woman and she really had visions of her getting into executive leadership. She was in the wine industry. And, I was working on helping her to understand and do some self-reflection on her attitude. I mean, she just had a bad attitude. She was kind of like a Debbie Downer. And, this is why she wasn't getting promoted. This is why when there were downturns, she was one of the first people that got let go. And it was so difficult. She wasn't willing to look at herself. But your attitude determines your altitude. So employees with negative attitudes about their jobs are much less likely to succeed in the workplace because they drag the business down with them. And a consistent bad attitude, you know what else? It's not just in the workplace. It can lower your life expectancy. So this is really important. Now, let's look at some of the primary causes of a bad attitude. The first one is low self-esteem, feeling bad about yourself. We all feel bad about ourselves sometimes, but if it's consistent, it can really lead to having a bad attitude. Fear, right? Being frightened of things. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to get rid of that bubble with all the writing. That's for ADA compliance, but it's a little too high. I just don't know how to move it down. But fear, attitude in a lot of ways is driven by fear or boredom, unresolved conflict. And I can speak to this. So I told you my set point tends to be very high, but I had an unresolved conflict at work. Frankly, one I was afraid to face. And it completely transformed how I showed up at work. In fact, I ended up really being asked to leave that job. I got fired from the job because there was an unresolved conflict that led me to actually just show up not in a very good space. Inability to accept change and resentment, holding on to things. These are all causes of a bad attitude. And again, they play out at work and they can have big impacts on the future, because the only difference between a good day and a bad day is your attitude. So there's something else in there that we didn't really talk about. And this is a topic of a lot of classes. I teach a lot of classes on this too, but it's stress, right? When we feel fear, when we feel resentment, when we have unresolved conflict, when we are feeling bad about ourselves and we have pressure to perform, when we're feeling that way, hey, we get stress. The important thing about stress is to kind of understand it. Now I have an inventory, whoopsie, I went too fast, an inventory that kind of tests this. But the key here is that we look at our current level of stress in our life and your reaction. Are you quick-tempered or are you kind of mellow, right? Do you have a lot of stress in your life or just have a little stress in your life? So stress does have an impact on our attitude and how we show up. And I talk about the set point, but it doesn't mean that certain situations in your life wouldn't change what your attitude is. And the level of stress has a lot to do with that. And then what is your natural reaction, right? Are you quick-tempered? Are you more mellow? But nevertheless, this attitude can start to pervade. So how can we tell if we're stressed? Well, we have physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, behavioral symptoms, thought symptoms. What's interesting about this is all of these kind of relate to our attitude. We have physical symptoms. When you look at someone with a bad attitude, don't you know it just by looking at them? Vice versa with a good attitude. Emotional signs. Yeah, sure. You can start to see it on people. And also behavioral symptoms. We just talked about lower performance, right? There are statistics, more absentee days, more turnover. We talked about that. Getting sick, having accidents. And a lot of this has to do with how we interpret the kind of things that we're going through in our life. So our lives are not determined by what happens to us, but how we react to what happens to us. And again, this isn't a class in stress. Stress is a normal, an instinctual reaction that is our fight or flight mechanism. In fact, we need stress in our life. Stress is really the energy that, well, what got you to take this class right now or to watch this video? There was some pressure for you to take action, motivation to do something. But the problem is that, yes, we need that. There's something called eustress, which is good stress. But when we talk about stress, it's usually distress. And it's a fine line between those two, between being excited and being overwhelmed. And so this is an important thing to think about, particularly at work. Are you excited? When we're excited, we have a happy attitude. We're looking forward to things. When we're in distress, we have a bad attitude. We're dreading things. We're fearful, right? So How do you adjust your attitude at work? Here are a lot of different things that it says. Take small steps. You don't have to expect immediately you're going to, turn it around, but take small steps to move yourself out of it. But you can only do that if you're self-monitoring, you're aware of that. Take the time to think about and dream about your career, what's possible to you. And then what do you need to do to be that person that has that kind of dream fulfilled for them? So can be very helpful to start to shift that attitude at work. Take time to, again, self-monitor, but also self-assess. Embrace where you're working. Right? What can you find within the mission, vision, and values that's exciting to you? If you can't find that, then get excited about dreaming about somewhere else to go. You and your employer want you to be happy at your job. And we're lucky. We live in a place where, yeah, we have ups and downs in the employment rate, but there are a lot of opportunities out there, and you can make a change if you're not happy. Be good to yourself, take breaks, eat healthy food, go for walks, give yourself the opportunity just to do some self-care even while you're working. If you're really stressed out, get out, get a walk, do some exercises. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. And start to expect to have a good day. And we're going to talk about some other ways to adjust your attitude, which I think are related to this, expect to have a better day. So here are everyday ways to adjust your attitude. And the first one is related to that, expect to have a good day. What is your self-talk? We all have this little voice in our head. I can't remember what it's called, but there are, some people used to think they were crazy to have that little voice, but we all have a little voice. It's the self-critical voice, or it's a self-motivating voice. Right? What is that self-talk saying to you? You get up, you stub your toe on the door. Do you say, oh, I'm such an idiot? Well, that's not positive self-talk. How can you change that self-talk to make it more positive? Stop shoulding yourself. Right? I should do this. I should do that. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. So what? You didn't do it. Because that is part of the self-talk, that's self-deprecating. You are putting yourself down. And that voice in your head, the way you have the attitude you have about yourself is the strongest attitude, the one that comes through. It's about the way you interpret the world around you, but it may not be true. How can you start to have a positive self-talk? And again, stop shoulding yourself. Be grateful for things. This is a wonderful way to adjust your attitude. Some of you on the line, you may be going through some really hard things going on with your family. You may be unemployed. Life is tough. It's true. But look where we are. The sun shines almost every day. We've got the mountains, we've got the ocean. It's absolutely beautiful here, right? Of course, this is in Santa Barbara, California. But I used to live up in Paso Robles, and I felt the same way. We are so lucky. We're in the United States, where, yeah, there's a lot of things that aren't perfect. But hey, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the middle of the rainforest in the South Pacific, and I can tell you right now, things are pretty darn good here. So what can we be grateful for? They say, if you have food in your refrigerator, you're wealthier than over half the planet, right? If you have a mattress and you sleep on sheets, right, you're in the 25% top income people in the world. So, there's a lot of things, even the little things, just to be happy about. Seek out happiness. What would make you happy? Do that. Seek comfort with change. We have to do this because change is coming. We are probably people who've experienced more change in our day-to-day living than any other people that ever lived on the planet. That is true. But what we need to do is develop our ability to change muscle, right? It's kind of like a muscle. One thing for sure, you can expect there's going to be change. So the more comfortable you can feel with it, the better your attitude can be. and value relationships. One of the things I told you, I had this bad experience with, it was actually my boss at work. I did get let go. And, I hope I never speak to that person again as long as I live. I have to be grateful though, because it led me to doing what I'm doing now. And I have never been happier. So I always believe when one door closes, another one opens. And as much as I don't want to see this person ever again or interact, I have to say, I actually value that relationship. I'm so grateful that it all happened the way it did, because I could have been stuck in this miserable dead-end job. Instead, I started a business that I love and I'm so happy about. So even those difficult, upsetting relationships with people you hope you never see again as long as you live, isn't there something in that? Can you kind of pursue the gratitude in that? Again, I'm really grateful for even the bad experiences that led me somewhere else in my life. And that is, that's really important to try to seek that out. It's hard, but, I think sometimes if we really work at it, we can find that. But these are ways to adjust your attitude on an everyday basis. And I love this quote. It says, the state of your life is nothing more than a reflection of the state of your mind. And in a lot of ways, this is kind of what we're talking about with your attitude. So your attitude comes through, but it's in your head. We want to blame it on that person that cut you off on the freeway, or, the coffee that spilled, but it's not what happens. It's how you interpret what happens that ends up being important. I'll tell you a little story about attitude, and this was about me. Many years ago, my kids were small. I think my son was like 6 and my daughter was like 8, and we had a boat. And my husband and I had planned a week-long vacation. So we had to organize our whole schedule, get vacation time, get everything set at the house, do all the stuff to take the kids to the lake for 1 week with a boat. And we had not done this. I mean, we'd gone up for day trips, but we hadn't stayed for a week, and we were super excited about it. We took our tent and we took our dog and we had all this great food, and we got there on a Sunday night and it was really wonderful. We got the perfect site right on the lake. Everything was perfect. Next day, first time we get on the boat, we decide we're going to go and put gas in the boat because we're going to water ski all week. And I was wanting to learn to water ski. I was very excited about it. So we go get the gas, we come back, and as we're coming into the shore and we were beaching the boat, I jumped out of the boat onto the sand to pull the boat up, and anchor it. And what do you think I did? Well, I fell sideways on my ankle. I didn't break my ankle. I sprained my ankle, but a very serious sprain. Next thing I know, I'm in the urgent care and they say, well, you've got to sit for a week with your leg up on ice. And I was like, oh no, how could this happen? And I realized, I thought, I am so tired. I have been working so hard, sitting around with my leg up on ice, not being able to do anything sounds pretty darn good. So I went back to the lake. We didn't camp. We didn't put up camp, but I sat in my camp chair with my leg up with a drink in my hand, and I had a wonderful, relaxing week. I didn't learn to water ski, but there was nothing to keep me from driving the boat. And I didn't know how to drive the boat that well. In fact, it was a wonderful week for my husband to water ski and for me to learn how to drive the boat with my leg up and sit around and have everybody else wait on me. The one thing I could do was drive that boat and have a few cocktails. So this is, an attitude adjustment. Was I happy that I hurt my leg? Absolutely not. But I wasn't going to ruin my vacation. I wanted to still have a good time. So it took a real adjustment in the way I thought about it. And I actually had a really wonderful, relaxing weekend or week, actually, the kind of vacation that I needed. So here's the thing. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This is the power of what it takes in our mind. The future really is yours to create. And this is a quote that I have as a screensaver that I love. It says, attitude, keep your face to the sun and you cannot see the shadows. This is from Helen Keller. Now, she was blind. Right? Keep your face to the sun, you can't see the shadows. Your attitude, well, it's up to you. And again, I'll repeat myself. I'm not looking at this with rose-colored glasses. I do not think it's easy. I think it's hard, but I can tell you the benefits of it. Right? Just like that trip that I took, the vacation. I could have sat there for a week crying. I could have, been a baby and made everybody pack up. But nope, I said, I'm still going to go on vacation. I'm going to have a great time. I don't have to do anything. I just get to enjoy my children and have them bring me cocktails and relax on the shore of the beach and learn to drive that boat. I had a great time. So your attitude's up to you. And, things happen in life that are hard, but it's how we process them and think about them and how we are able to have it impact us, in a way that doesn't take the excitement of life out of us. And sometimes we need time to make that happen. But at the end of the day, you are the one who makes it happen. And I know you can do it. So that's it. We talked a lot about attitude. It's my pleasure always to do these workshops. We'd love to get your feedback. There's a Survey Monkey available for you there to do so. This workshop was put together for America's Job Center of California, sponsored by the Santa Barbara County Workforce Development Board. What we do is we post these on their YouTube channel. So you can just look up America's Job Center of California, Santa Barbara, and you'll get their YouTube channel. And gosh, I don't know how many are there now. This was actually from a grant that was related to COVID. So we wanted to be able to provide some services to job seekers. And knowing that people are busy and they've got a lot of things going, we thought, well, let's do a series of workshops that we can post on YouTube and have them available for anybody at any time that they want. And I think that there's many, 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 many of them by many excellent presenters. And I invite you to go and check them out and to complete that Survey Monkey. So with that, that's it. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna turn the recording off, but I hope you join us again for some of these workshops. So that's it. Thank you all so much. And we'll see you again.